This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming back the lovely Jamielynn Lippman, the actress, filmmaker. You know, she was one of Burt Reynolds' girls in that diner scene in Boogie Nights. I'm having her back on, and we are going to nerd out on the entertainment of our youth, and I can't wait. You know, she's close to a decade older than I am, so we'll be able to relate to a lot of the same stuff. You know, talk about film, television, and music from our childhood. She has an awesome podcast that she does with her ex-husband. It's called The Real Modern Family Podcast. I've listened to a few episodes. It's pretty funny and entertaining. I'm going to get into that with her as well and see what films or shorts she's making currently. And it's going to be another great conversation. You know, Jamielynn's very smart and very sweet, and it's going to be another great conversation. Also, happy belated birthday. I should have said it yesterday, but I forgot. Happy belated birthday to my favorite Beatle, Paul McCartney, 82, way past 64. Can you believe that? Oh my God, Paul McCartney is way past 64. He is 82. Happy birthday, Sir Paul. So yeah, here is my new interview with Jamielynn Lippman.
Hi.
Hey Jamielynn, welcome back. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Yes, how's the weather over there in LA?
Well, I was in Palm Springs. I just got back actually 20 minutes ago. So it was really nice there, like high 90s, which I like. And here it seems off to a good start. It's sunny. But yeah, I literally just got home, so I'm just back at my computer.
Yeah, we got that over here in Modesto. It's nice and hot over here. It was pretty cold yesterday, though.
I love it. I love the heat. I'm going to Joshua Tree to write for 7 days on Sunday.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be like the same, like 90s. So very, very much looking forward to that.
Nice, nice. So, going back in time, do you remember the first movie that impacted you as a child?
Well, there's a couple. I try to think like which particular one. Terms of Endearment. That was a big one. So when I was a kid, my dad loved movies, and we were with him every other weekend and every Tuesday night. And every Tuesday night was the dollar night at the Mann Theater in Valencia. We grew up in Santa Clarita Valley. So every Tuesday we went to the movies, but we saw only what he was seeing. We didn't see any kid movies or anything like that. I mean, from like the time my parents were divorced, like 7 years old on, we did this for years. That's how I fell in love with movies. And I think having a childhood with, you know, my dad on the road, he was in professional baseball. My parents divorced. My mom working all the time, trying to get her career off the ground. We were like latchkey kids, and that's what I found was film. It was my favorite place to be, and to the point that in high school, all I did was ditch school to go to the movies. So there's a couple from childhood. Terms of Endearment's a big one. I'm trying to go way, way back. Oh gosh, there's so many from like my teens that are very effective. But when you try to think of the earliest ones, I'm like, okay, well that was like 86 or that was like mid 80s, and I was born in 76. So I was probably around like 10, I think, when I would see things like that started to really have an effect on me.
Yeah. I was born in 83. My brother was born in 73, so a lot of the stuff I like, it's because of him. He recorded everything off of HBO when we first got HBO in the summer of 84. You know, I mean, we had all the teen sex comedy movies like Porky's, Revenge of the Nerds, Zapped, Weird Science.
Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah, Weird Science. All those teen angst movies. I mean, obviously big ones like E.T. and things like that, like Jaws. You know, those are things that always stuck out from youth. But then you go through that, like, you know, teen period of like, oh gosh, from even like the Tough Turfs and, you know, all the John Hughes movies and all that kind of stuff. And then I think I got more exposed when I was like 16, and my brother showed me like Farewell My Concubine, and I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm in like this world of foreign films. And then I would just literally go to the movies and see everything that was there from, that's when like Pulp Fiction came out, and Basketball Diaries, a lot of, I'm just trying to think of what came through my theaters. And then I moved to Hollywood at 19, and I moved in I met this woman. She's still one of my close friends. She's 10 years older. And we went to Lemley's Sunset 5, like an art house theater. And we went every day. We had like no money. And all we did was like go to the movies every single day. Mm-hmm. And that's when it really started to escalate for me as far as opening up my world.
My mom worked for the cable company, and so we had all the free cable channels. We never got to have the movie channel because it was expensive even for employees. And yeah, I mean, we went to the movies regularly. We rented movies every other day. The first movie that impacted me as a child, truly impacted me as a child, was Back to the Future.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, because, my parents used to let me look at their yearbooks, and I always had that fantasy of going back in time and finding out why they're so fucked up and I'm so fucked up, And so...
Well, it just all felt so real. I mean, it felt like that, when I was a kid, I did commercials and, kind of got in a little bit into Hollywood and stuff, but the magic of what you saw on that screen, it was just like, even as a kid going with my dad every Tuesday, it was like, it didn't matter what I was seeing. It was my favorite, and it's still my favorite place to be. Like, I see everything in the theater. I have a great setup at home, but like I go to the movies as often as I can. I feel like as you get older and your life gets busier, it's harder, but there'd be periods where I go, 5 days a week and I just see everything.
Yeah. What genres did you gravitate toward the most?
I just have I'm such a wide map. I think when I was, younger, it was like teenage angst and love stories and that sort of thing. I really like true life stories. I like darker stories. Like some of my favorite directors, just to give you an idea, like I have a tattoo of Kubrick on my right wrist, and then I have Cassavetes on my left. Yeah. And then I like a lot of, foreign, like Antonioni is like, I think is just one of the most magnificent filmmakers on the planet. Real big Paul Thomas Anderson fan.
Oh, yeah.
I tend to I'm not real big on like comedy. I appreciate action, but I'm not a huge action. Like I'll go see any kind of Mad Max or anything, and like there's so much fun to be in movies like that. Mm-hmm. Comedy, animation, like I appreciate it all. Comedy is probably my least favorite. I always said if I want to have a film festival and like there's no comedy, there's no animation. Like I like Woody Allen comedy. Anything that's relatable, I like, but not anything that's I just don't have a sense of humor for it. I guess I don't like anything that's silly.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before. That's very interesting.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, I'm a stand-up comedian. I was for 10 years, and it's just like comedy has always been a big part of my life. I gravitated toward the comedies and horror. Those were like my two like main genres when I was growing up and stuff. My parents showed me The Shining when I was 1, and it scared the shit out of me. And I didn't see it again until I was 7, and then by that point, I wasn't scared anymore. But like after that, they like had me see like Ghostbusters and Gremlins because they were PG rated horror comedy, But then by the time I was 8, I was watching slasher movies when my parents weren't awake. So, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I do love to laugh. I mean, who doesn't? And I like live comedy or comedy specials. Like, absolutely. I'll go watch stand-up comedy. But I think the reason that I find that is that it's relatable. So when someone's, telling jokes about something that's relatable in my life or, their life or just in the world or some kind of pop culture thing, that I find funny. It's kind of why I find like Woody Allen's dry sense of humor. That's what it is. I more gravitate to like a dry sense of humor. It's just anything that's like very silly. And it doesn't mean I rule it out. It's just probably like my lower genre. But that being said, I still will see everything, most everything. Whether it's like, like I can find entertainment in a lot of things. I love those like Wedding Crasher movies, those kind of things. They're fun, and I kind of look at film in general because I see so much. Is it my critical eye or is it my filmmaker critique eye, or is it my in my entertainment? It's like
Right.
I went and saw Fall Guy, and I'm like, this is so over the top. And if I really try to break down how ridiculous some of this is, but I didn't. I just enjoyed it. I just had so much fun watching these people and enjoying this ride. And I think that's kind of how, a perfect film is something that I don't find critique, and I'm completely lost. But I can separate and compartmentalize, knowing what I'm going in to see, and then sometimes you're like so blown away. Like when I saw Maverick, I was like, oh my God, this movie is. My expectations were not where they were when I left. I mean, I loved everything about it. It was everything a movie should be, and it was just kind of perfect. Like action, love story, dialogue. I mean, everything about it. So. I try to be open, but I see a lot. That's my favorite thing to do.
What are your favorite Woody Allen movies?
Oh, I mean, I think I'll always go back to Annie Hall, Manhattan.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen him all so many times. I just find, and I don't love all his newer stuff in the past, like let's say 10, 20 years. I still watch it all, and I still appreciate it. And I still find, what I love about Woody Allen, and I find very relatable. Like I'm very into jazz, and I love New York, and I love art, and I just find his films are so well cultured, and I love the worlds that he's introducing you to. But I feel like Annie Hall, I mean, it's such a given, but it's really pretty special. And I've seen that film, I don't even know how many times.
I own all the VHS prints of it. That's how much I love that movie. It's my favorite romantic comedy. Because you think about the history of romantic comedy. The guy always had his shit together in most of them. But then Woody, showed that, you could be a weirdo and still fall in love and have, a halfway successful, relationship. And then before it all falls apart and everything. I just thought that was a very relatable story. I also love Sleeper and Love and Death and Everything You Always Want to Know About Sex But We're Afraid to Ask. All the earlier stuff. And then later, he got a little bit too artsy. I love Zelig because I consider myself a Zelig in many ways. I like that murder mystery he did about 20 years ago, Match Point, with Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, yeah, I did. Like that. I did like that as well. You know what I actually really liked was The Mighty Aphrodite.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
I mean, that would be something, and probably, I think that was like, what was that, like
90,
early 2000s, late 90s?
95, I think 95.
Oh, wow. Gosh, back when that stuff was like actually in the theater, like I saw all that stuff at like Lemley's. Manhattan, I love.
Stardust Memories.
I did like Vicky. I liked Vicky Cristina Barcelona and Blue Jasmine. Blue Jasmine was terrific.
Yeah, that was
Blue Jasmine. I feel like that's kind of those are the kind of the cutoff points, and those were like like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah,
I think that's what we're looking at. But yeah, I just find I love his honesty too, of just putting exactly kind of capping on what you said, just kind of putting it out there of this is who I am, flawed and all. And just, you write as a writer, you write a lot of what you know. And I love that he puts himself in there and in parts of his life so honestly and so unapologetically.
Yeah. My brother had a weird obsession with medieval sword and sorcery epics. It took me a while to get into them, but in recent years, I've been able to get into stuff like Kroll, Neverending Story, Highlander, Labyrinth, stuff like that. I always loved Labyrinth, though.
I always love Labyrinth. I feel like all that gosh, I haven't seen stuff like that since I was younger. Neverending Story, all of that. I mean, I feel like even as a kid and a teenager, it was like I saw so much of what was out there, and then I think it's just as I evolved and got into like filmmaking and really studying directors, then I just started to, I love gangster movies. So obviously, big fan of Scorsese. I mean, Goodfellas is just one of the greatest things ever. I can't even count how many times I've seen that film.
Yeah.
Probably like 200, and it just never. There's just certain things that I just revisit a lot, and then I'm real big on Hitchcock. One period I did. I like to do like marathons of directors. So my favorite ones, like obviously like Kubrick, and I like David Lynch a lot as well. But I only did this one once, but Hitchcock was really challenging because I was like, I'm going to go back and see every single film from the very beginning. And I had to go on like 50 different platforms, like Hoopla, the library, for all these earlier works. And there was, I think, only like 2 that I couldn't find. But it was kind of a fun challenge, and so fun to go through someone's body of work when they have like, what does he have, like 100 films, and you start at the very beginning and watch one out in that chronological order. I do that with Cassavetes a lot too, because I just love his films. I love a filmmaker who can just tell the kind of stories that he wants, and whether they're, accepted or mainstream or not. I mean, now in this world, you have to make things that are for the public for them to be viable. But back then, you could make, a lot of filmmakers they could make what they wanted. And I admire someone like him a lot.
Oh yeah, Vertigo was always my favorite because I feel like it's speaking to me, the guy who can't get the girl. It's very relatable on that level, and I've heard that metaphorically it was about how Hitchcock wanted Grace Kelly, but she married the Prince of Monaco, and then she wasn't in his movies anymore. After that marriage.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Rear Window. Oh, love Rear Window.
Yeah. Oh. Classic.
Rope. Yeah. Rebecca, North by Northwest, Strange on a Train. They're all, I mean, he's incredible. And I just love, I use a lot of what he says, like the Hitchcock bomb theory, where like suspense versus surprise. And I feel like a lot of filmmakers, like if they just listen to that piece of dialogue that he recites about having the audience be surprised or having them be in suspense, because he's obviously the master of suspense. It's so amazing to me how I watch films like people are missing that. Like, how did they not? That's like film school 101. How did they not study that? But a lot of people also didn't go to film school. Not that matters. I went to both. I went to films and I went to film school. So, and I didn't go to fancy film school. I literally went to JC because I just wanted to learn the tech, and I just wanted to learn, cameras and to shoot and how to edit and real basic. Because some of the greatest people, I mean, look at Christopher Nolan. I mean, he and Tarantino, they studied film. And I think that's super, super crucial. So, I mean, there's a lot of directors that don't study film, and it's kind of mind-blowing.
I took a film class in junior college. I got thrown out because I was correcting the teacher all the time. He was always getting shit wrong, always.
Well, that was my problem with being an actress, to be honest, was like, yeah, because when I would go and I would audition for things, and it was so stupid, I would shoot myself in the foot. They would ask me what I thought of the script, and then I would really tell them. And especially some like independent filmmakers, I was never disrespectful. I would always say what I loved about it, but I would say the things that I think, almost like adjustments, and then I would have people asking me like for more information of like almost like notes to make it better. And then they're not seeing me as this actress anymore. So yeah, that was, I learned early on, I was like, yeah, this probably isn't a good idea. I need to keep my opinions to myself and just say I really liked it and I love the character.
It's kind of a compliment.
It is flat. I've had a lot of filmmakers. It is flattering. I've had some filmmaker friends that have and I do the same when I'm in, really far in post, who have had me come in and watch, find cuts and said, what problems do you see? And I think I have an eye for doing that, and I've done it for a few bigger films that I'll never mention, completely with no credit, just because I knew the filmmakers and I wanted to help them. It's a community. Yeah. So
do you remember your first drive-in experience?
Okay, so speaking of drive-ins, I don't recall the film, but my dad did take us a couple times. But then during COVID, that is all I did. And it was the greatest thing. And I thought, why didn't I do this more? I mean, in LA, we had from anywhere from like the Hollywood Roosevelt, did The Exorcist. There was the restaurant, what's that restaurant? Mel's Diner on Sunset.
Oh yeah, love that place.
They did a drive-in. Okay, then, but then I went to. Then there was like all these pop-ups. So like I saw this like there was like this food and wine event with the movie Sideways. It was like downtown LA. So anything that I could find, I would do. But then I went to all the original drive-ins, like the ones that are like, 40 minutes away. And gosh, what did I mean, I saw Blue Velvet. I saw, and my boyfriend at the time was so on board for this. And it was great. We would make a picnic, or we'd pick up sugarfish, we'd get pizza. And then I went with a couple girlfriends one time, as my friend Carly, because everyone was living this like stuck at home depression. I was like, there's things you can do. And for me, the movies was like the hardest thing to not do was. And so I probably went to, I would say maybe in COVID, in those lockdown months, I don't know, maybe 30 films easily. That's all I did, was go to drive-ins. And then as soon as movie theaters opened in Vegas, I drove with my boyfriend at the time, and we went and saw Tenet. And it was amazing, because it was like the first movie that, like, I don't even know how many months it had been, because there was no theaters open. And to be able to like go into an actual theater after not going for, 4 months or whatever it was. And we literally drove to Vegas to go to the movies, spend the night, go to dinner, and drive back the next day. And completely worth it. And then AMC, they opened, I think 2 months later, and I went the first show, the first opening. I don't remember what I saw. I think it was that Tom Hanks film. I'm drawing a blank on it, but I was like, I don't care what it is. I get to go to the movie. I get to go in an actual movie theater.
The Tom Hanks, Mr. Rogers movie was the last movie I saw in the theater for 2 years because of COVID and stuff. And then when I came back, I saw the James Bond movie, the latest one, and I fell asleep like halfway through it. I wasn't entertained by it,
Well, yeah, but it's also like, how happy were you to be back? After all that time. That's how it was for me.
It was fabulous.
The last film I saw, and I remember lockdown was a few days later, and I still have it in my ArcLight. So I'm a big, like, the Cinerama Dome is my favorite place, like, of anywhere. And I've seen hundreds and hundreds of films in that theater, and I miss it more than anything. And I have a lot of artwork about it.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was living in an apartment building in Hollywood, this real nice high rise, and out my window I could see the dome.
Yeah.
And it was to see something like that across the street and never know when you're going to go back. And we're still not going back. Well, now we are next year, apparently. All these years later, that was the biggest, that was the hardest one for me. But I did go. The last film I saw was that Ben Affleck basketball movie. Why is the name escaping me?
Oh, yeah, I know which one. Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No, not Air. It was the, oh my gosh, what was it?
I can look it up here. Let's see.
I gotta know now.
Air? Was it Air?
No, it wasn't Air, because Air came out. Hold on a minute. I'm going to show you right now. Oh, I can tell you in my ArcLight. Okay, yep, right here. March 9th, and I think we shut down like the next week. The Way Back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The Way Back in the Cinerama Dome. Wow, it's like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. I was 2 when my parents started taking me to the drive-in. We went to see a double feature of Weird Science and Rambo 2, and I kind of remember it and stuff. I can remember going back that far. I'm not Mary Lou Henner, but I have a pretty good memory of the early years and stuff, because it was just so emotional for me, and it set me up for the future. But it got to a point where they stopped taking me for a few years, though, because I would either fall asleep in the car or I would get out of the car and knock on windshields.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, my problem is I can't really go to the movies late at night, and it's hard because so the Vista, which Tarantino bought and took over, and it is in LA. To me, it's the most incredible the sound in there. I saw Napoleon, which, is very problematic. And then I just went and saw Civil War there. And it just, it's unbelievable how that theater looks and sounds, but it's Tarantino, so of course it's going to. It's like another level. And it's comfortable, and the rows are wide, but the problem is they have a lot of like 8:30 films, and I'm like, yeah, it's a little late because. So that's the down. I like matinees. I'm a huge let's go at the earlier the better, like 9 a.m. If I can go see something at 9 and then 11, I'm good. I love going to matinees.
Yeah. Getting into television, did you watch TV sitcoms growing up?
I did everything. I mean, Family Ties. Growing Pains. Beverly Hills 90210. I watched that. Yeah, I think I watched. I mean, didn't we all like Friday Night TV, right? But I still love television. I love a lot of series, but I love more cinematic series. But I'll always pick a film over a show. The timing of television is a lot easier. You've got an hour window. But if I can and I'm home, I try to make the window of 8 to 10 is. I'm either rewatching something, because we go through this period where nothing comes out and nothing is very good or worthwhile, or you watch a bunch of stuff that just came onto Netflix or Hulu or any of these platforms, or just came on iTunes that was art house that you didn't get to see in the theater, and it's none of it's very good, and then you just got to go back and rewatch real film, real cinema.
I watched all the sitcoms of my generation. Facts of Life, Give Me a Break, Family Ties,
Oh yeah.
Cheers, Family
Facts
Matters,
of Life, yep.
Seinfeld, Perfect Strangers, stuff like that. But I really loved the sitcoms of my parents' generation, like Leave It to Beaver, The Munsters, The Addams Family, I Dream of Jeannie, Gilligan's Island. Of course, I love the 70s social commentary sitcoms, like Mary Tyler Moore Show and All of the Family and Good Times and stuff like that.
Honeymooners was a big one for us because my dad would watch that every single night. He loved that show. So I watched, every episode multiple times of that show. I really liked that a lot. And then Mary Tyler Moore, Rhoda. I feel like you'd stumble on these kind of Mork and Mindy.
Oh, loved Mork and Mindy.
Yeah. I definitely think that I guess I think more in not so much. I'm pretty open, and I'll kind of jump onto any series that people say is worthwhile at some point. But I think if you go back to youth, definitely was more into sitcoms than I am now in the same way in comedy and film. Because it was so fun to watch these half-hour, but I think it's also the same thing. They were relatable family shows that were more running the line of dry humor than slapstick.
Yeah, well, there were the sitcoms with the families where everyone learned a moral lesson at the end, and the humor was kind of dry because they didn't want to offend anybody. And then there was the sitcoms that were pretty irreverent and sharp. And it's funny, Mr. Belvedere balanced it between being irreverent, sharp, and also family moral lessons.
I loved Mr. Belvedere.
Yeah, it's funny. About 6 months ago, I interviewed Tracy Wells, who played Heather on the show, and I went back and watched several episodes, and I was like, God, this show was edgy, but yet very well written, and it holds up today. Some of the jokes are pretty edgy by today's standards, but in terms of quality and writing, it's a pretty good show.
Yeah. You know what I loved was Wonder Years. That was a real big one for
me. The Wonder Years, love it. I still remember.
The Wonder Years is, just that, I loved Who's the Boss.
Yeah.
The Wonder Years would definitely be up there as one of the most effective. When I think about television series that are really effective, 6 Feet Under, getting a little older in life, 6 Feet Under is still, I think, one of the greatest shows that will ever be made of all time. And that series finale is, I can't think of a better episode of television ever that could match that. Did you watch that show, 6 Feet Under?
6 Feet Under, no.
Okay, you could go start it tomorrow, and it would be one of your favorite shows. It's just such a smart, honest, well acted. It's pretty perfect. But this series, I sometimes will go back and just watch even the last montage, the last portion of it. It's so powerful. That's a real big one for me. Love Twin Peaks. Seen every episode of that, and I actually went to a Twin Peaks festival. I was like in a theater company with somebody that's really big into it. He like ran the festival, and so kind of elevated my love for Twin Peaks and David Lynch. That was a big one as well.
I love Twin Peaks as well. I didn't see it when it was on because it didn't last long, but I watched it years later. My video store had like the entire series on VHS, and I would rent them all the time, and I got into it that way. And I've met Sherilyn Fenn a few times. And,
that's awesome.
And I've interviewed Charlotte Stewart, who of course got famous as Mrs. Beadle on Little House on the Prairie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Little House on the Prairie as well. I love that show. My sister actually, we all kind of acted when we were kids, and she actually guest starred. And I remember going to that ranch because we lived in Santa Clarita, and going on that set. And the show was it felt so real when I would watch it as a kid. And then going to that set, and it was just, I think it was like the Disney Ranch or something. It was just unreal. And to think like, wow, you can do this. Like we got little tastes of it as kids, and it was like, you can do this for a job. Like this is not real. Like this is unbelievable. I just love being on a set so much.
My grandmother, she used to watch the murder mystery shows that starred, someone who was big, like in her day, whether it was Murder, She Wrote, or Father Dowling Mysteries, or Diagnosis Murder. Did you have grandparents that watched those shows?
Yes, my grandma, Murder, She Wrote. I saw almost every episode because I would watch it with her. That's all she watched. She loved that show. With that, what was that woman's name?
Angela Lansbury.
Yeah, Angela. Yep. Yeah. Oh gosh, you're really bringing it. You're really bringing it all back.
Yeah. Did you watch children's educational programming?
I don't think so. Like, what are we referring to?
Well, let's see. I mean, on PBS, we had Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers. We had Nickelodeon. I used to watch Pinwheel, which was a ripoff of the Electric Company.
Okay. Mr. Rogers I did. Mr. Rogers I loved. Sesame Street I loved. I feel like I kind of was a little... when Nickelodeon really came around, that I was almost maybe getting too old for it. So there wasn't really a lot that I watched there. I mean, maybe like Super Sloppy Double Dare and those kind of things. I don't even know what age I was then, but definitely Mr. Rogers. I watched probably every episode of that, and definitely Sesame Street.
Yeah, there's a show that was out of Canada that was on, I think it was on Nickelodeon, it may have been PBS, I can't remember. It's called Today's Special. It was about this department store. There's this security guard who was a puppet, and I've interviewed the guy who worked the puppet and did the voice. And there's this mannequin, every time you pull his hat off, he becomes a human. And there's this little mouse puppet named Muffy who was really cute. The puppeteer for the security guard was actually married to the woman who did the voice of that character and stuff. It was a pretty interesting, entertaining show, and I interviewed an actress who guest starred on there once, and she asked me if I was Canadian. She's like, I've never met an American who knew that show. I was like, oh no, it was out here in the States for a while. And
oh wow, yeah.
I know a lot of people in my generation who watched it, yeah.
I didn't know that one. If we go further back, I did watch, a couple more came up. La Boat.
La Boat.
La Boat a lot.
Fantasy Island.
Fantasy Island, Dukes of Hazzard, Three's Company. I love Three's Company. I watched every episode of Three's Company.
Me too. I learned sexual double entendres watching that show.
I love that show. Yeah. What else? Jeffersons.
How about Saturday morning cartoons?
Never really a big cartoon person. And
Really?
still, like, even I'd say today, like, I completely appreciate and love some animated films. And my daughters are now 12 and 14, but as they were younger, I feel like we'd see everything. And growing up, there was no rules of what I could see. I could see whatever I wanted because my dad it didn't matter if I was 7 and it was like rated R and nudity, there was nothing that was too much for me to see. And so I kind of had the same rules with my kids because it was kind of felt like only fair, and my oldest, who's now 14, I remember when she wanted to see it, and like it was like nobody's really letting their kids see that, and it's kind of like, why would you let your kids see that? And I said, you know what, I feel like they're mature enough to decide what's good for them. And so we went, and it was like It 2, and I think she might have been like 10. And 15 minutes, we went to the arc light, and maybe 15 minutes in, she was like, this is too much for me. I don't think I'm ready to watch this yet. And we left. And I was like, you know what, good for her for knowing what works for her at this age, and that's kind of how it's always been. And then when she wanted to watch The Shining, we watched The Shining. So you definitely want to share that love with your kids of film, with also trying to be a responsible parent. But that being said, I gave judgment on me or not. I had no rules of any age, whatever they wanted to watch, because it felt like, since I didn't have it, and it also is why I am who I am today, and my love of film.
My parents are very open people, and they're down to talk about anything, and I got that from them and stuff. But like when I was a kid, I had to turn my head whenever there was nudity. If there was way too much swearing, I had to put my fingers in my ears, and that was like in the early years and stuff. And if I swore, I got a bar of soap in my mouth. They just wanted discipline and stuff, right? But then by the time I hit my teens, then that all went away, and then now I can swear all I want in front of them or watch whatever. But like in the early years, they wanted to be a good example to me, and say, okay, okay, you can't say that, you can't watch that until you're older, kind of a thing, and I think it worked well to my advantage, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think it's also, we're living in a different time period, right? Because they're exposed to so much. So I feel like everything, if I'm very open, and my girls can come to me or talk to me about anything. And it's funny, we used to have a thing about swearing that if they wanted to curse, I'd be like, all right, let's just get it out in the car and just say whatever you want. And it was like Tourette's of cuss words. Yeah. And they would just like, fuck, 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 fuck. And so, and that's what we would do. And I would call it getting our swearing out. And whenever they wanted to do that, we would just do that in the car. But they knew they couldn't do it in public or in front of people, or if they went to they're very well mannered and like at somebody else's house. And I think it made it so it's like not taboo. And now, like at 12 and 14, they barely even curse. Like, sure, if something upsets them, or if somebody pisses them off, or they hurt themselves, or stub their toe or whatever, and fuck, that kind of thing. But because it wasn't, I didn't make it this really bad thing, there's no consequence if you curse. They don't really care to curse that much. So whatever, in this situation, it really worked.
My dad didn't know how much I was like him until he saw my stand-up, and he just, like, the things I was saying, it reminded him of himself, and I was like, oh, God, too much information. I wanted to think I was original and I was me, that kind of a thing.
That's funny.
How about board games? Did you play like Clue and Battleship and stuff like that?
We did, yeah, big, and my family's still really big on games. It's a big part that I love about I have a really big family, and we're all really close. Growing up, Yahtzee was a big one.
Yep.
We love cards, tile rummy, gin rummy. What other board games? Monopoly. I mean, obviously those ones, but Operation. Yeah, I didn't get it. I mean, I didn't get into that as much. Now, as an adult, I love chess. I got into chess over COVID. My boyfriend and I played it a lot. It was
you had a
really
lot of time
fun.
On your hands.
I loved it. And then we started playing it like individually on an app. And then I got like a beautiful custom made, gorgeous chessboard. And now I don't have anyone to play with. But yeah, I would say like Yahtzee was a big family one for us, and tile rummy. We still love playing tile rummy, and then any kind of card games, gin rummy. And then we as a family, like, we play a lot of like almost like charade-ish type of games. Yeah.
Can you imagine the amount of people? There had to have been some people in the world who got badly injured while playing Twister.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was fun. That was fun to play like at people's like birthday parties and stuff.
Yeah. Candyland. I never got that game, and like it's like an iconic game.
Yeah, Candyland. I feel like I more played that kind of stuff with my daughters when they were little, like those kind of games.
Yeah. Yeah, there were all these games that I remember seeing previews for on TV when I was a kid that like nobody ever talks about anymore, like the Game of Life, and remember Bright Light?
Oh yeah, light. Yeah, I like life. I
Light
like
Bright, yeah.
Battleship. Battleship was great.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Battleship is a great one. That Connect Four. I feel like we still always have that in rotation. I love Trivia Pursuit. I love any kind of trivia games. I think those are probably my favorite.
Yeah, Battleship reminds me. God, there was a comedy in the late '90s. I can't remember which one, where these two women are on the toilet side by side, competing with each other on who's going to shit more, and they call it battle shit. And one of them's got an English accent. She's like, "You just sunk my battle shit."
Oh yes, I know. That was like one of those. That was like a movie, wasn't it?
Yeah. I can't
Yeah.
remember which one though. It was pretty funny. Was it
See, some silly comedy, and I still know it.
maybe Scary Movie or something like that, or Austin
Yeah,
Powers,
exactly.
something?
Exactly, something like that.
I could find out later. Um, Musically, do you remember the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Oh gosh. I mean, probably anything Madonna. Real
Yeah.
big in Madonna. When I go back to music, I actually called. It's so funny. Like I just saw that the Eagles are playing at the Sphere in Vegas, and I thought, oh, I'm going. And I was maybe we were like fifth grade, I think, and I would go camping with my friend Nicole, and I just actually told her the story like 2 days ago. I would go camping with her and her family in like Lake San Antonio, and there was
Mm-hmm.
one place we went to, and there, these big campgrounds all built in, and they had this like festival. I don't even. It's like when you get older, and sometimes the details are so foggy, but you know the memory.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget laying on the grass, and we listened to the entire album of the Eagles. And I think we might have even smoked pot, like with these older people.
Nice.
And it was such a magical summer moment, and I'm so connected. Like when I saw it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to see the Eagles, and it's like that came from that. I like music is an equal part of my life, the same way that film is. And I love so much music. I'm not real big on like newer and poppier
No.
kind of thing. I'm really big into jazz. I'm really big into classical. I'm really big into kind of classic rock. I have moods, like when I go out to the desert, I want to hear the Doors, and I'm huge, huge, huge Bob Dylan fan. I want to listen to Bob Dylan and Velvet Underground, and I mean, there's so many genres that I love.
Mm-hmm.
But I love a huge Frank Sinatra fan. I listen to Frank Sinatra every night when I cook. It's like my mood is what dictates what I'm going to listen to, and I have music on from the morning when I'm having coffee and it's Yo-Yo Ma to when I'm sitting at my computer working and it's like this Icelandic composer Olafur Arnalds, and then cooking to Frank Sinatra and then listening to jazz while I hang out with people and drink wine. Like it's like the story of my life almost through music.
I was an MTV kid, so my grandmother gave me birthday money when I was 8. I got Phil Collins' No Jacket Required, and Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In, and my parents had a big old box of vinyl records when I was growing up. They had everything from the Beatles to the Stones to Johnny Cash live at Folsom Prison, Fleetwood Mac, Rod Stewart, lots of people.
I love all of that, all of it.
There's nothing like that stinky, musky smell of vinyl. It's so intoxicating,
Yeah, I collect vinyl, so I listen to a lot of records. But like everybody you just mentioned, that's the thing when you go back to youth, it's like, gosh, I have memories of like, the Smiths and Journey, and it's time periods in your life from like what you're going through. It's like that adolescence of your first boyfriend, your kiss or prom or heartbreak or all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And wow.
Yeah, my brother had the Pete's Dragon soundtrack on vinyl that was given to him, and I got into the movie early on, and I remember we playing the album, and it started to skip when the part when Nora's telling Pete that Paul's never coming back. I just remember hearing, "He's never coming back. He's never coming back. He's never coming back." And then finally, my mom turned it off. It annoyed her, you know. But
that's funny. I remember, Pete's Dragon. Oh wow.
I'm a huge Pete's Dragon fan.
A big one for me, and I think there's moments, and you think of these like out of a movie. But I remember one time I was driving out of my Rabbit convertible, so I obviously was 16, and I don't remember the circumstance, but I was really sad, and I was driving, and we had a lot of like back roads and Pico Canyon and these kind of things, and I was listening to In Your Eyes, and it was like it fixed everything. It just made I don't remember the details of what happened, but that song just being so incredibly powerful, that Peter Gabriel song, and it crying and emotional, and now I have this Sia Breathe Me song, and if I'm ever like going through something and I drive in my car, especially like in the desert, and I turn it up so loud, there's just so much feelings that come along with that. Music is one of the most powerful things on the planet. I mean, literally.
That whole album is great. The So album, Red Rain, and
oh gosh, Red Rain.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go listen to this as soon as we hang up. It's so I love Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins, and I follow this stuff on Instagram, and what I love about these algorithms is when you're interested in something, then everything like it pops up. And so one of the things, there's like a lot of, since I'm into vinyl, and a lot of things will just pop up in my feed that are vinyl related. And there's this one guy, and he just like pops on, like it'll be like Eric Clapton. I love Eric Clapton as well. Wonderful Tonight, I think, is just stops me in my tracks. I think it's such. Oh gosh, what a song! What a song! I mean, what an artist. Tom Petty.
Huge Tom Petty fan.
Tom Petty, yeah, you're bringing back all the people that, like, I would say from high school, that like just different moments in time of and I was that generation when I remember going to Music Plus, and you could buy tapes. And then I lived in LA when Tower Records. I went to Tower Records all the time. And now it's like you see it and you're like, gosh, like I was here in the 90s. I moved to LA in 95, like right when I graduated. And I feel so lucky to have been part of a time like that.
Do you remember your first concert?
Okay, so I would say first ones, there's two.
Same here.
At Magic Mountain, New Kids on the Block.
I love
Paula Abdul and the Boys, okay, because they were playing at Magic Mountain. But my I would say my true concert that I bought tickets for, that I'll never forget for the rest of my life, that I would say is my first concert, because it was music that I loved so much, and I took a friend as a Christmas present, and I think I was 16 years old, and then we went and saw Nirvana at the Great Western Forum, and we were standing like right in the front, and I'll never forget seeing Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
Something in the Way is probably my favorite Nirvana song. It just it slays me every time I hear it. That would be if I were to say my first concert, because, going default, I like New Kids on the Block. I was a teen, young girl, whatever. But my first real one, I would say, is Nirvana.
Yeah, I went to the county fair and saw Steppenwolf with my dad when I was 15, and John Kay was the only original member, and all the 40 to 50-year-olds was looking like the magic is gone, but I didn't care. I thought he was very charismatic and funny and entertaining, so I liked that concert. And then my dad and I went to go see Alice Cooper a few years later.
Oh, wow.
That guy's a showman. I mean, he'll do at least one or two songs from every album he's ever recorded, except for the ones where he was really fucked up in the early 80s. The new wave stuff he won't do, but he does most of his career, and he gets killed at the end of every show. I forget how he died at the end of this show. I think he got electrocuted or stabbed or something. I can't remember. Or hung. I can't remember. But that was...
I saw Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond's another one. My dad took us when we were real young.
I wish I'd gone to see
Neil Diamond.
him. I had chances.
I've seen him twice, and he's just unbelievable both times. I really, really love Neil Diamond.
I had chances to see him before he retired, and I wish I had taken them. He was so great. Yeah, New Kids on the Block. Oh my God, all the boys used to call me a girl in school because I admitted that I liked them. You know.
Wow, it's really going back.
Do you remember your first makeout song?
It wasn't to a song. I was like oh gosh, because my first real kiss was, I think it was like 5th grade, and it was at a party. I know, I'm so bad. I was so young. 5th or 6th, I'm trying to remember, but I remember who it was too. Mike Melmuth at a luau pool party for my friend Nicole. Mm-hmm. And everyone was watching, like they were like, oh, on the other side of the wall, like I think they're gonna kiss. So it wasn't to a song. It was to a 6th grade birthday party or something like that. Wow.
It was 7th grade. A girl named Caitlin, I won't say her last name, and Janet Jackson's "Love Will Never Do Without You" was playing, and I've always loved that song, so I wouldn't have any other song. I'll tell you.
I love it.
That was always my favorite from the Rhythm Nation album. I had that album on cassette, and I always loved it.
Yeah, she was really great. Michael Jackson as well. I mean, God, you just go on and on. I mean, there's just so many.
My parents got me the Bad album on cassette when I was 4, and I always had that one.
And then you go in the Beatles world, and that was another big part of high school. We used to go to this coffee shop, and they had this Beatles tribute band, and they were unbelievably good. Yeah. And we went every week and saw them, and I just love "Getting Better All the Time" is my favorite Beatles song.
That's mine too. Oh my God.
It is?
Yes.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best whenever I want to be in a good mood, and I'm usually a pretty good mood, but life throws you challenges sometimes. And so I just put that song on, and I'm like, wow, it is getting better all the time. I love that song. I mean, I love so many Beatles songs. Yeah. I mean, there's countless, but that song is so great.
The counterbalance between Paul's optimism and John's darkness of pessimism is just fantastic in that song. It's just, oh my God, to me it's the perfect Beatles song.
Yeah, it's really great.
Do you remember the first time, whether it was intentional or by accident, that you saw a porn movie?
Oh gosh, yes. Every freaking birthday party at like 5th grade on, because that's what you would do. You try to find any, dirty movie that you can watch. And then we loved like Revenge of the Nerds. Like, yep. We watched them all the time. Like so many times I would watch those movies with friends. And it was all like 6th grade, 7th grade. Yeah, that's what you wanted to get. You wanted, that was the one thing that you hadn't really seen, so you would try to find a way to see it, and like be a bunch of girls like, okay, let's watch this movie. Her parents are asleep. Like, yeah. I would say Revenge of the Nerds is definitely one that, like, I mean, we definitely watched darker and more pornographic stuff that we could find, but that was kind of a classic, like, so much fun to watch with your friends.
Yeah, because, like, let's see, the first 2 times I can remember seeing a naked girl on film when my parents weren't around were, there's this movie, Hamburger the Motion Picture. Really, really dirty movie from 1986. I think it's in the public domain now. It's like a movie that was like cursed in many ways for the people who were involved, and it's like a movie that's never been put out on DVD or Blu-ray. It's on YouTube though. There was that, and then there was this movie Mischief with Doug McKeon and Kelly Preston. That they have a sex scene in the movie that was pretty graphic and stuff, and I can remember getting caught on Hamburger, but not on Mischief, and so like those were the first 2. But then when I was 10, I saw my first porn movie. We had this channel called the Spice channel, because my mom works for the cable company and had all the channels, and so we had this channel for a brief time, and I just turned it on one night, and I see this guy fingering this girl, right? And I watched the scene, and then I turned it off thinking, oh God, I'm going to get caught, so I better just turn it off. And then 2 years later, when that first makeout experience that I just alluded to happened, that scene came in handy. I don't know the name of it, but thank you for helping me.
Oh my God. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, speaking of films with nudity, I saw in I think I wanted to say it was 90s, at the Los Feliz 3, which is now part of the American Cinematheque. And I had never seen Caligula on the big screen. And I was just so, I went to the theater to see it. And I was the only woman in that entire theater.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it's LA. It's a film crowd that's going to go see that film, and so it's totally, respectable. But to see that pornographic and the story behind that film, and it's terrible in so many ways, but also necessary. I was kind of like mind blown on that one for being an adult, and just the fact that these actors had no clue that this was going to be presented this way. I always love the story of the telling of a film and how it was done. So,
have you ever seen Deep Throat?
I don't think I did see. No, I don't think so.
It's overrated, I'll tell you.
Yeah, did I see that? I don't think I did. Brown Bunny.
Brown Bunny, saw
that. I like him, though. I really do like Vincent Gallo a lot. I wish he did more stuff. I think Buffalo 66 is absolutely terrific. I think he's a great actor. I think he's a great, even Brown Bunny. He tells whatever the fuck he wants to tell, and he does it really honestly and unforgivingly and unapologetic. I met him. I was at an event with him years ago and talked to him for a really long time. And I just think I wish he did more. I think he's just a terrific actor as well.
Mm-hmm. So I've listened to some episodes of your podcast, the Real Modern Family podcast.
Oh.
How did that idea come about?
Well, a lot of people were saying at one point we got approached to do a reality show. But I don't really know about all that. And a lot of people said, it's super what you guys are doing. This is just us living our lives. And for those people that obviously don't know, the Real Modern Family is about me and my ex-husband. We're best friends. We were together for, we've been in each other's lives for like 22 years, but we were together for like 17. Very, very, very happily married, and have two amazing, beautiful daughters. And when we split up about 6 years ago, we just stayed a family. We do everything together, and we spend holidays together. We definitely have our own lives as well, because we have our children 50-50. But a lot of people were saying, you guys got to do something. We thought a podcast was just a fun way to do it, and with no real goals. But when people started to reach out of like how it's really helping them navigate, divorce and holidays and finances and all these things. And he's in the music business, and so we have like a lot of music kind of guests come on, and they can kind of talk about whatever they want. But yeah, we really enjoy it. And if people are gaining anything from it, we don't expect they're ever going to be where we're at. And by the way, it's not always perfect. We have our fights and our challenges as well. But for the most part, our friendship didn't die just because our romantic part of our relationship did.
Yeah, you two remind me of my parents. My parents, they've known each other since they were kids, and even though they were legally married for 15 years, they've always been just friends. It's a miracle that I'm here today, because they just have always had that special relationship of being just friends, and they still are to this day. They can talk about anything without any awkwardness, So when I was listening to you two, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm watching a newer version. I'm listening to a newer version of my parents, because I just felt so comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, we like it, and we're very open book. Just in general in parenting, I'm more of a friend kind of parent. We both are, and we, have these wonderful daughters, 12 and 14, and I think that we've done a really great job. And it's not the ideal way for everybody, but this is just what works for us. This is how we live our lives, and incorporate day to day. So it's definitely when we get into relationships, that's definitely like, you kind of are coming into a lot, but we're both open arms about it. So
Yeah, I love the episode where you two are talking about dating post divorce. You know, that one I thought that was pretty entertaining because you're you're both like, yeah. So who are you dating? You know, stuff like that. I just thought that was awesome.
Yeah, we definitely open about that, and that's an interesting world too. Navigating that whole thing when you come from, I was not part of like dating apps or anything like that, so
Mhm.
that's still interesting. That's a whole other episode,
Yeah.
Tommy. Whole other episode.
Did you hear my interview with Illeana?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was great. It was really great.
Thank you. Yes, and yep, I mentioned you and how you thought that she should have won the Oscar for Grace of My Heart. You know, I gotta say though, I felt like she was kind of annoyed that I had mentioned Cape Fear and Jerry Lewis and all of that stuff. You know.
No, I think it went really well. I think, for me, I just didn't like, and not even necessarily Oscar, but I didn't, that film did not get, I think, the attention that it deserved, even in the art world.
Hmm.
She's magnificent in it, but
Always.
it's a really important film. It really had a big effect on me, a really big effect. I had I just found a lot of it relatable as an artist,
Hmm.
and that the journey and the relationships that she goes through, from Eric Stoltz to Matt Dillon,
Hmm.
uh, to getting back to herself and finding herself again, and creating her album. Oh, I just think it's. I watched it not too long ago.
Yeah, she's fantastic in it. I thought that was going to be like the big indie hit of the '90s, and that she was going to get
I'm
nominated. I
sorry.
was always shocked that she didn't.
I think she's terrific. Yeah, I really enjoyed. I like that you had her on there, and
It was a
yeah,
miracle.
she's great. She's a great actress. Great actress. But yeah, that I actually, and funny enough, after we talked and you
Hmm.
told me she was, or I saw that she was coming on, I went
Hmm.
and rewatched it because it had been quite a few years since I had seen it, and yeah, it makes me cry. It really does. I get really emotional when I watch that film, and I know the soundtrack by heart. I mean,
Hmm.
there's certain things like that I think have been relatable in my life, like that movie Begin Again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a terrific film. Oh, it's so good. There's a lot of these relationship type, 500 Days of Summer, that every time I watch them, they're very effective
Hmm.
and relatable. That's why I always go back and rewatch them. There's always like the films too, like when you get out of a relationship, and you're heartbroken. I like go watch like 5 things like right away
Yeah.
and feel all those feelings and shed all those tears, and I go through it. I think that's how you do it. I mean, a lot of people are like, let me find another person or let me get on a dating app. And I'm like, what? No, no, no. You got to go like feel all the feelings.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going through like a bit of a midlife crisis. Back in February, I read a book written by a guest of mine, and I just read out of my own volition. It wasn't like she told me that I should. I just read it, and there's a chapter where she talks about how she met her boyfriend she's been with for the last decade. She met him at a pop culture trivia night in 2013, and I thought to myself, in 2013, I was a pop culture bar trivia champion, and I didn't fall in love. I got drunk and pissed people off and won prizes pretty much. And next thing I know, I start crying for 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm approaching 41. I just turned 41 last week, and I'm like, I gotta get on the ball and find somebody, but I don't want, the dating apps, dating websites, bars. I did all of that. Every girl that I've ever gone out with was because of those places. I've never been friends first with a girl and went out with her, and I've never been introduced by somebody. So I'm like, oh my God, I just moved to Modesto. It's like I gotta freaking get out there.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, and everybody's different, and for me, the apps are necessary. I mean, I've had success. I mean, my last boyfriend of 3 years was from a dating app, and I don't like them because every time you kind of, I tread lightly in them. Let's just say it like that. Because the problem with these dating apps is that everybody's, looking for the next best thing, and people's, what they're looking for are not necessarily aligned with what you're looking for. And that's challenging. That's challenging when you can meet somebody so great, but they're still pursuing to see if there's something better than you. That doesn't make any sense to me. If I meet someone and I go date them, I'm like all in for them and see where that goes. And if that doesn't work out, then I go back and, when I'm ready, and go back on them again. And I've met some people that started out to be so great and then they ended up just being terrible. But it doesn't defeat me, because I don't, like, if I'm out, I go see a lot of jazz, and I go out to restaurants a lot, not really looking around. I'm with the people I'm with, so I'm really focused on them. That I'm not one that really meets people in real life, just because. So that's where I find dating apps to be a necessary thing. Not that I love them, but they are necessary for me.
It's just that, I'm not one to turn down sex, right? But that's all they want at the end of the day, I have found when I have used them, And I've got a lot of great stories from that in my 20s, but I also got a lot of bad stories of meeting people I thought I had a connection with, and then they just didn't want to see me again after that, And I'm just trying to maneuver, through those emotions and figure out a plan,
I mean, the best thing for me, like, it just in general, is I feel so fortunate to be an artist, because when something doesn't work out, like, I was recently seeing someone that it didn't work out, and I wish that it did. And then, for me, the best thing is I put myself into my work and my life and myself, and that's it. Because when I met this person, I wasn't looking for him; I was just living my life, and that's. I've been fortunate to have a lot of really great love in my life, but I think the key is you just do be you, and you be the best you, and then the right person comes along and it does work out.
I've voluntarily not looked for anybody for 8 years, and I've focused on me and the podcast and all of that stuff, and I've met a few women that I wouldn't mind dating. Just the problem is they're in LA, I'm over here,
Yeah. Well, that is a challenge. I if you don't live in the same city, that can be a very big challenge. But you know what? You're in a new place, so maybe, you're open, and maybe she's out in Modesto.
Maybe. So do you have anything upcoming you can mention?
Yeah, so I'm actually I'm adapting. I've been doing it for a while, but I'm nearing. I just finished adapting it, and now I got to go. This is why I'm going to Joshua Tree. I rented the most unbelievable house. But that's like, well, I didn't want this house just for you. I'm like, and I'm going by myself, literally with my dog, for 7 days.
Nice.
It's like on 3 acres. It's an unbelievable property, and I'm adapting this book, and it's really about a sex cult. It's really wild, really fascinating. It started in the 70s in San Diego, and it's kind of like Manson without the murders. But I knew people I knew someone that moved there in the 90s and lived it. And I was so fascinated with it back then. And so she had mentioned a couple years ago that somebody from there wrote a book, and so I optioned it. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm just hustling to get it done and get it made, because I think it's really quite fascinating. And it was really they didn't know it at the time that they were in a cult, but it was really this manipulative sex cult. And I think it's completely fascinating and a great story. And so I'm going to just be in the desert and watch the sunrise and write all day. And I'm not going to leave until it's finished. And then there's a couple things that I have on my plate. I have a writer that I've been working with, and we just finalized everything, and it's kind of like this film set in like 70s Southie Boston, kind of like Stand By Me meets Goodfellas, and it's great. And it's about the rough Irish boys and which direction they're going to take in life. And I really like this story a lot. I think this is in line. I'm like over half Irish, and I love everything, and I love that it's in that gangster vein. So that's something that I'm working on that as well. And then I just came up with a really good idea as soon as I finished the book, a love story that I want to write that I think is unique. And Yeah, so there's a lot, but that's kind of what my summer is going to be focused on, and kind of in line, the first thing being the cult book.
Oh, that is so awesome. It sounds like you're being creative and you just have a reservoir of ideas that are going to be really good stories. And I'm so happy that you got that going on, Jamielyn.
Thank you. Yeah, I need it right now. I've been through a lot, and um, yeah. I mean, and I got to get all emotional, but like, I just lost my mom. Very, very recently. My mom passed away. Thank you. And it's very new. And but I have decided that it's going to be an ongoing challenge to get through this kind of grief.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to take over my life. I'm not going to cancel your podcast and not live. I have to live, and then I'll go be sad. Probably won't get off the phone. But I feel, any time you can channel pain and that energy into art, whatever kind of artist you are, and I'm lucky that I can write, and that's what I'm going to be doing with it.
Well, don't be sad because I have a joke for you.
Okay.
Okay. What kind of meat does a priest eat on Friday?
Oh, I have no clue.
None.
That's pretty good. Pretty good, Tommy.
Thank you, Jamielyn. Thank you for coming.
All right. Always
on.
Great talking to you. We'll talk again soon.
Yes.
You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for nerding out with me today, and please keep that pretty chin up and keep being creative.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Jamielynn Lippman. Ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my god, I freaking love her. I'm so glad we got to talk today and nerd out. Yeah, I mean, almost close in age, but we experienced a lot of the same things. That was a great conversation about the pop culture nerds that we are. The latchkey kids. We are the latchkey kids. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.